Hey class, welcome back. We are going to start our Cold War unit today. We just finished up World War II. We'll start the Cold War. The Cold War was not a war like World War One or World War II that we've gone over this year. It was a war that never happened, hence the Cold War. All right. It was a power struggle to see who was bigger and who was badder between the United States and the Soviet Union. And as you see here, my two flags. Whoops. There we go. My two flags here. We got the United States flag and the Soviet Union flag over here. But it was a power struggle to see who was bigger, who was better. And, they had their hands in several different things during this war. You had the Korean War going on. You had the Vietnam War. They were each one was backing somebody else, but they'd never fought directly. So that's what we're talking about. We're going to go over overview some things that we're going to go over in this unit, and so here we go. Like I said, the Cold War is a long period of tension between the Western world and the communist countries of Eastern Europe, and it was led by the United States, and Eastern Europe was led by the Soviet Union, just like I said before, and they became known as what were called superpowers. All right, they were the two leading countries in the whole world at this time. Okay, uh, they were the biggest, the baddest. All right, and they never officially declared war on each other, but they fought indirectly in what was called proxy wars. They had the arms race, the space race, and we're going to cover a little bit of these proxy wars here in just a moment.
The Cold War. The Cold War was a long period of tension between the democracies of the Western world and the communist countries of Eastern Europe. The West was led by the United States, and Eastern Europe was led by the Soviet Union. These two countries became known as superpowers. Although the two superpowers never officially declared war on each other, they fought indirectly in proxy wars, the arms race, and the space race.
All right, so this lasted a long period of time. It lasted from right after World War II, from 1945 through 1991, when the Soviet Union fell. Uh, uh, the Soviet Union was an important member of the Allied powers during World War II, but they didn't really trust them because they were was a communist country compared to the democracy countries of the rest of the Allied powers, and they were concerned with Joseph Stalin because Joseph Stalin he was very brutal. Okay, he didn't treat his people right. He had mass genocide throughout the Russia and several different countries, or several different of what he led. So the Cold War came to an end with the collapse of the Soviet Union, like I said, in 1991. So this is the time period. It lasted for almost 50 years.
Time period 1945 through 1991. The Cold War began not too long after World War II ended in 1945. Although the Soviet Union was an important member of the Allied powers, there was great distrust between the Soviet Union and the rest of the Allies. The Allies were concerned with the brutal leadership of Joseph Stalin, as well as the spread of communism. The Cold War came to an end with the collapse of the Soviet Union in 1991.
All right. So I told y'all at the beginning we had several different what we called proxy wars. Okay, and it was fought between the superpowers of the United States and Soviet Union. These proxy wars were, and as we're all right, there were wars fought between other countries, but each side that was in another war, they had either the United States backing them or the Soviet Union backing them. So they never really they got involved with it, but they never fought each other directly. They would An example of these proxy wars would be the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Yom Kippur War, the Soviet Afghanistan War. So all these things they had each side that was fighting each other country that were fighting had a superpower behind them in these different wars. And one of them would be the Soviet Union, one of them would be the United States. They were called proxy wars.
Proxy wars. The Cold War was often fought between the superpowers of the United States and the Soviet Union in something called a proxy war. These were wars fought between other countries, but with each side getting support from a different superpower. Examples of proxy wars include the Korean War, the Vietnam War, the Yom Kippur War, and the Soviet Afghanistan War.
All right. Another thing that happened during the Cold War, you had two different races going on. All right. each side, the United States and the Soviet Union, they wanted to show who was bigger, who had the best technology, who had the biggest muscles, okay, the most firepower. All right. So they had a couple different races. They had the arms race and the space race. Uh, and during the arms race, it was to see who had the best weapons. All right, who had the most nuclear bombs. We talked about World War II. The first nuclear bomb, the A bomb, the atomic bomb, was the United States was the first one to use this in a war to end World War II with Japan. So, but the idea that they want to have these large stockpile of weapons, and so it would keep the other side from ever attacking. If the more weapons you had, the better it was to keep them from attacking. So, and they also had the space race during this time, and it's where each side tried to show, hey, who has the best technology, who can get to space first, who can first to orbit the Earth. I'm sorry, y'all, orbit the Earth. Who's the first to do that? Who would be the first into space? All right, and it was a race. It was who could get there first, and you could show who was better by accomplishing these certain space missions first. So the arms race, see who had most weapons, and then the space race, best
Arms
technology.
race and space race. The United States and the Soviet Union also tried to fight the Cold War by demonstrating their power and technology. One example of this was the arms race, where each side tried to have the best weapons and the most nuclear bombs. The idea that was that a large stockpile of weapons would deter the other side from ever attacking. Another example was the space race, where each side tried to show that it had better scientists and technology by accomplishing certain race missions first.
Certain space missions first. All right. So the arms race, let's get back to this arms race, is where they had to see who had the best weapons. All right. The United States and Soviet Union became engaged in this nuclear arms race. All right. And they both spent billions and billions of dollars trying to build up these big stockpiles of nuclear weapons. And by the end of the Cold War, the Soviet Union was spending about 27% of its gross national product, okay, on its military and on these weapons. So it hurt their economy very much, and that's what helped to bring it into the Cold War, was because it was hurting their economy so much.
Arms race continued. During the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union became engaged in a nuclear arms race. They both spent billions and billions of dollars trying to build up huge stockpiles of nuclear weapons. Near the end of the Cold War, the Soviet Union was spending around 27% of its total gross national product on the military. This was crippling their economy and helped to bring an end to the Cold War.
All right, and then with the space race, which we're going to talk about both of these in depth. So during this time, the United States and Soviet Union, they engaged in this competition to see who had the best top technology with the space race. All right. They wanted to see who could put the first manned spacecraft into orbit, who would be the first to walk on the moon. Although by this time, whenever they announced that, the United States had pretty much lost the space race. All right. Yes, we were the first. The United States was the first to get to the moon. But by that time, the Soviets had done everything else first. So, in my opinion, I believe the Soviets won the space race. But, that's just my opinion. It was considered important because it showed the world which country had the best science, the best technology, and economic system.
Space race continued. During the Cold War, the United States and the Soviet Union engaged in a competition to see who had the best technology in space. This included such events as who could put the first manned spacecraft into orbit and who would be the first to walk on the moon. The space race was considered important because it showed the world which country had the best science, technology, and economic system.
All right, comprehension questions. This is our overview for what things that we're going to cover in this unit. Who were the countries in the Cold War? Who were involved in the Cold War? Was it A, France and Britain, B, the United States and Russia, or C, Germany and Austria? It was B, the United States and Russia, or the United States and the Soviet Union. Russia and Soviet Union is kind of the same country. So,
ding, 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 we have a winner.
Number 2, what was the time period of the Cold War? time period of the Cold War? Was it A, 1945 through 1991, B, 1900 to 1920, or C, 1700 to 1776? It was A, 1945 to 1991. It lasted 46 years, almost 50 years. The Cold War took place.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 3, what kind of wars did the U.S. and Russia have? What kind of wars was in between this that they never, it was called a Cold War for a reason, because they never fought each other directly. But what was it called? A, no wars, B, world wars, or C, proxy wars? It was called C, proxy wars. Each side would back another country, all right, in their war, but they never would fight each other directly.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Number 4, what was it called when both sides tried to demonstrate their nuclear bombs? A, a foot race, B, the arms race, or C, the space race? It was B, the arms race is what it was called. They both got together and they tried to get as many nuclear bombs together as possible, or for each other as possible, and stockpile these huge piles of nuclear bombs. It was an effort to try to keep the other one from ever attacking.
Ding, ding, ding. We have a winner.
Last one. What was the battle to get to space called? A, the space race, B, Battlestar Galactica, or C, the arms race? It was called A, the space race. It was to see who had the best technology, the best scientists, who could get to space first, who could go up and have the first man orbit the Earth, etc. Okay, the first man to walk on the moon, which the United States did that in 1969. But as I said before, I believe the United States ultimately lost the space race because the Soviets by that time had already done everything first.
Ding, ding, ding.
It is called the space race, however. All right. I will be back next time. We'll be talking about communism, and then later on we will be talking about the Red Scare that has to do with communism. So I will see you all then. You all have a very good day.